Hello everyone, how are you? This is Jin from Next Level Commander, and today we have a legend that delivers the Vivi experience for 1/300th of the price. Now, a few weeks ago, I made a video talking about a budget build around Vivi Ornitier. I went through the deck list to make sure everything is bulk. I double and triple checked, except for one minor negligence. Now, there's been a lot of negativity around Vivi lately. The price, the power, Wizards pushing it just a little too far. And within the span of weeks, Vivi went from one of the most beloved characters in Final Fantasy to the representation of everything people disliked about this set. I also didn't like the fact that the commander for my budget brew costs more than the rest of the deck, so I went and found an alternative. Same cost, similar stats, and can be just as annoying for your opponents with a day and night trigger if you choose to constantly remind them. Now, the more relevant text here, though, is that as Vadrik grows, he will reduce the cost of all your instants and sorceries. While reducing every spell by 1 or 2 mana is quite significant in a Storm build, I still don't think he's able to come close to Vivi for that. But for the deck that we brainstormed, Vadrik can definitely fill the role. Maybe even better in some aspects. Now, the idea is to use the most efficient pump spells on Vadrik to give a large temporary boost, and after that, cast some massive draw spell to refill our hand and then attack for the win with our still enlarged commander. Normally, all-in Voltron decks like this face the problem of taking someone out of the game fast, and then doing nothing afterwards because you're out of gas. It's quite an unfun play pattern for you and the unfortunate victim. But in the case of Vadrik or Vivi, we are refilling our hands as we kill, and we pretty much never run out of gas. Now let's take a quick look at the selection of pump spells. And Vadrik actually has an advantage here. Because of his ability, we want to play cards that have at least one colorless cost, because it's always reduced. This allows us to play the more powerful, more impactful pump spells, compared to Vivi, for the same mana cost. But at the same time, we are also limited by pips, because those are not reduced, so we have to prioritize spells that are low in colored costs. Alright, here are some of the pump spells. As you can see, for 1 extra mana, we get a little more value. Sometimes it's extra pump, for example, Antagonize or Screaming Fury, or sometimes we get cards like Haste Magic, where we can potentially play an extra card. Or also, you come to the Null Camp, where it can be a pump spell or some evasion in a pinch. I try to prioritize the spells that gave Trampled, because it also serves as evasion. Next up, we have pump spells that are just a little bit more complicated. Ancestor's Aid pumps only for 2, but gives us a treasure token, which refunds us the 1 mana spent. And also cards like Rush of Blood and Unleash Fury, the doublers, they are terrible as the first pump spell, but when combined with others, they can deliver a value way higher than their mana cost. The X pump spells serve similar role, they're almost like doublers as well. At the same time, Fist of Flame. Again, early is not good, but after you pump your commander and fire off a huge draw spell, the Fist can easily pump for 7 or 8 while replacing itself. Now the blue ones are the most interesting here. They do not work with each other in multiples, but as the first pump spell, they are excellent value, while providing some extra utility, whether it's hexproof or evasion. These are really nice to see in the opening hand. Now that we have our commander sitting at 7/7, 8/8, it's time to look at part 2, the best cards for refilling our hands. And as you can see, the only thing I looked for in these X draw spells is the amount of colored costs. The lower, the better. 1, 2 is acceptable, but any more than that is not making the cut. Now, the non-X draw spells are not worth playing, with one exception. The ones that can pay for themselves. Tezzeret's Gambit is the worst one here, being free. And every other draw spell here is actually a ritual, either ramping us with treasures or untapping lands. And now that we have a massive commander and just drew 7 cards, what we're going to look for in those 7 cards are the evasion spells and finishers. And for evasion spells, it's fairly straightforward. If Vadrik doesn't already have flying or trample from the pump spells, we give it unblockable. And here I chose the ones that can either be used multiple times or replace themselves. Throw in some finishers like Double Strike or Extra Combat, and you probably have a dead opponent. And also a full grip of cards to kill the next one. And the next one. Yeah, just follow these steps. Easy as 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. But that's not it, because we need some protection spells to round things out. Eventually, your opponents learn about your deck through, dying. And they know that they have to remove Vadrik at all costs. So we have 8 spells here, mostly giving hexproof. My favorite one here is actually Fleeting Reflection. It's a decent protection spell, but later on, it can be also used as a pump spell, depending on what your opponents have. And lastly, to round things out with our non-land cards, we have Ramp. Starting with some budget mana rocks, we only play the 2 mana ones because we want to drop it early and then have our commander on turn 3 with protection mana. And also, there are some interesting late game ones, the first one being Brass's Bounty. This was before they discovered tapped treasures. So as long as our commander is decently large, this can easily be a ritual for 4 or 5 mana. And also Path of the Pyromancer. Usually when we have a massive hand after a draw spell, we are short on mana. And just pay 1 more red to cast this, and suddenly you have a full grip still, but 8 more mana to use. And make sure to insist that everyone does the voting part even though it does nothing. Never miss a chance for chaos. And these are all the non-land cards. The lands are actually super simple because in this deck, we don't want any colorless land or any land that enters tapped. That limits our option. We just want mana fixing. No utility, no strip mine, no nothing. All the cheap 2-color lands. And pick a basic land art that you like for a total of 37 lands. And that is our deck. The budget is $50 and the play pattern is, I'd say, fairly simple. Although sometimes you do have to make decisions on when to pull the trigger. For example, Vadrik, you can cast them on turn 3, but you have to kind of assess the table. Do they have removals? Is it safe? Do I cast Vadrik on turn 3 or turn 4 with 1 mana for protection? Which opponent do I attack first? The one who opened with a Soul Ring? The one who's more explosive later? Or the one who wind-stabbed my body odor when we sat down? I mean, we've got some decisions to make, but not too many. And for $50, this deck has been tearing my group apart. Bracket 2, bracket 3, doesn't matter. If your opponents fail to interact early, the moment you get your first large Vadrik turn, it becomes more and more difficult for them to stop you. And lastly, if you do manage to open a Vivi and want to play that instead, there are some changes to make, but not too many. We replace the 2 mana pump spells here with the 1 mana ones, and also add in some Vivi specific cards like Curiosity. And that's all for our deck tech. If you like this content, please like and subscribe for more. And if not, I'd love a comment telling me what kind of content you'd rather see. I'll do anything. I'll see you later.